Hello, good morning. We're going to continue with 3D printing cell phone cases. Today I'm going to walk you through, here's an iPhone 5 speaker case. Now the speaker cases themselves, like we call them speaker cases because it sounds like you have a speaker connected to your phone because it amplifies the sound. The way it does that is with a simple sound deflector. Now on a phone like iPhone 5 or a similar phone that has a speaker at the bottom, meaning the bottom of the phone, when you're looking at your phone or you're doing something over here, the sound, if you notice, is going down into my palm usually. So if we just add a little bit of material to bounce the sound, it'll then bounce back to me. So it'll sound actually louder. And these work really, really well. So I'm going to show you how to go ahead and do this. I'm going to start off from the middle of the project, actually. So if you didn't watch the video from before, the last lesson on how we derive a part, go ahead and get to that point where you actually have a derived part. That's where I'm going to pick up from. So here we go. Let's share my screen here. And here is Inventor, and here is my original derived part. And this is where I'm going to be starting from today. Now you notice I have some like little floaters in here that I have to clean up. So I'm going to go ahead and clean up some of these little floaters here. And the way I want to do that is I'm going to go ahead and place a 2D sketch. I'm going to put that right on this face. Then we can project this geometry. All right. And then all I'm going to do with that geometry is I'm going to extrude, cut in both directions about, I don't know, 1 of an inch. And what that's going to do is that's going to get rid of anything that's sort of floating there in space. The next thing I need to do is you can notice that the speaker is down here. These are little speaker holes. So I need to create room in order to bounce that sound back to us. So all we need to do is grab this bottom surface, place a new sketch, project this rectangle whenever I get something that looks like this rectangle. And there we go. And I can extrude this by, let's call it 1/4 of an inch, 0.25. Right? And that's going to be our basic starting point. All right. And now we have enough material. And I'm going to cut out all of this stuff in one step here. So I'm going to go to New Sketch. And I'm going to project geometry again. So I'm going to project all of this geometry. And then I can offset. And I'm going to offset this by 200 thousandths or 0.2. You notice that this right here is actually inside of the screen, inside of this edge. So it creates this little lip. So this can still attach to the phone in this little space right in here. Okay. The next thing we need to do is just make sure we have enough room and that we connect and we have closed geometry there. And that actually encompasses, goes past all these little indentations and things for our power and our headphone jack, so on and so forth. Once we have that, make sure you go ahead and trim some of these lines here so the computer doesn't get confused when you go to extrude. Sometimes it doesn't know what you're extruding if there's multiple closed geometries. And I just want to select this one simple rectangle, and I want to cut. But I don't really want to cut a distance because, I don't know, my measurement might be off. So I'm just going to go 2. And I want to cut that 2. Let's just go all the way down to the bottom of the phone, okay? Or the bottom of that phone case, which is right there. Now you can see how you kind of have a little bit of a lip here and then a space, all right? And that's what we want, that little bit of space to bounce that sound back. And now let's clean this up so it's looking a little nicer, which is what we want here. And we can go ahead and fillet all of our edges. But what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to fillet those edges last. And the reason is the phone that you might be doing, maybe some of these buttons are kind of closer to the geometry here on our phone. And sometimes when you fillet it, it'll look better if you fillet it last. And not to mention, it's easier to work on all of these flat sides. So let's take a look in here and see if there's any other features on this side that I have to look out for. No, not on this particular phone. But over here, I do have to make sure I have enough room here for all this other stuff to get cut out. So I'm going to do this a rather easy way and just place a new sketch here. rotate it sideways just for ease. And then I'm going to project geometry again. And I can try to find that geometry by kind of like mousing around in here, which I really don't want to. I can actually flip over. And I can actually project all of that geometry. Oh, go back to here on the side. And now you can see I have all of this geometry projected. So I could actually, this is our SIM card slot here. You generally don't need to access that from your phone. If you do, you're going to take it out of the case anyway. But let's just say you want to make sure you leave that open for whatever reason. So let's make a slot. Just make a center point slot, whereas this is one center point, and maybe the center of that. It's not really lining up too well, is it? Let's just do, trying to figure out where to put it, where it's going to look the best. Somewhere in here. And see how it keeps trying to attach to other things. I want to make sure it's nice and flat. There we go. I want to bring this out all the way to the edge here. All right, since I already have that geometry projected. Now I can finish the sketch, and then I can extrude. I want to make sure I have all of this stuff in here. There we go. You can make that stuff construction lines first, but makes it easier for you. But I want to cut, and just make sure you cut enough through. And now I have a slot for all of my buttons. Now, similarly, I'm going to place a sketch on the back of the phone. New sketch. I want to project geometry. And you can see I have a circle there, a circle there. And again, that represents our camera. And now the camera is kind of funny because of the angle of the camera and the thickness of the case. We have to have enough clearance, okay? We have to have enough clearance for the camera and the flash so you don't see the case. So I'm going to hit escape. And if I want to make my life a little bit easier, I can make these construction lines. So you can just barely see them. All right, but they're still there. And I'm just going to place another slot from here to here. And I want to make sure that that's big enough, right? So that's about 0.3. So let's just go with half of an inch. Nice big slot there. And that'll be enough room for the camera and the flash. And then I can extrude, I can cut. And then I have a hole for the camera. Oh, I also need something for that power button there, right? So let's go ahead and let's do that. And again, working with the flat edges just makes your life a little easier. And I can project geometry. If you have trouble finding the geometry that you want, again, you can rotate around and say, okay, I want to project that geometry. Zoom in. I'm hitting escape. And I can select. I can make this a construction line up here. All right. And then I can grab a slot again. And the slot, what I'm really looking for is the center point. The center point. And that's about, I don't know, 75 thousandths it says. So maybe do that. I will call it 2.2 looks like. There you go, 200 thousandths. Just make sure we have enough room. Maybe go at 150 thousandths there. Note though, this is a construction line still, so just make sure that, oops, don't finish the sketch yet. We want to make sure that this slot here is not a construction line. That's okay. I'll just select both. I'm going to go ahead and extrude. cut. And there you have it. And you can see I've got everything cut out for the buttons and slots. Now you can get more creative with all of these, and you can make these look a little better if you think like this right here might look a little thin to you. So you can make this slot here maybe a little smaller. So how do you do that? Well, that was under this extrusion. And again, if you don't have your browser up, you can go ahead and view user interface and make sure browser's selected there. And I'm just going to go ahead and I'm going to adjust this sketch. And then let's say I want to make this, I don't know, 0.4. Make that a little bit smaller. Now when I finish my sketch, it'll automatically update everything. Now I have more material here. All right, so that was easy. And that's good for the basics, I think, right? Everything looks basically done for all the holes we need. Good. Let's go ahead and fillet our outside corners. And there we go. And I want to fillet that a little more. So let's go with, see what a 1/2 of an inch looks like. Yeah, let's go at a 1/2 of an inch. And I also have to fillet these little corners in here. I don't like the way 1/2 of an inch looks. Let's go with a 1/4 of an inch. Yeah, 0.25. That looks pretty good. And again, these measurements are all subjective, basically. Just make sure you have enough material thickness, and you can do whatever you think looks a little better. And there I have a nice little transition here into the speaker part. It's a little bit thicker down there. That's okay. That's okay. So there we have most of what we need. And let's take a look at how we cut something out of the back. So I'm going to put a new sketch here. And let's go with, let's show you how to do some text. I haven't done that before. So text, I'm going to call this iPhone 5 speaker. And I'm going to show you some problems and some issues we can run into here. So I'm going to start off with just putting that on there. Okay, now you can see that right away, I don't really want it facing that way. So I can rotate. And let's say I want to rotate it. This is going to be 270 degrees. Done. And I also want to make this bigger. So I'm going to center this. Make sure I select. And let's see what 1/2 inch looks like. That's going to be too big. Select all of that. And let's go with 400 thousandths. See what this looks like here. I think that looks pretty good. But again, you might have to change this. And the reason you're going to have to change this, I'm going to show you. If you cut all of this out and you cut out these letters and you cut them all the way through. Now, you don't have to cut them all the way through. You could just cut them in and use an emboss. So I'm going to show you a few different ways to do it, and then we're going to automatically update and dynamically move things around. So I couldn't go ahead and I can extrude that, and I can cut that all the way through, okay? But if I cut this all the way through, click OK, you're going to notice that I have pieces here like this P, all right? When you go to 3D print this little piece of this P is going to stick to your build plate, right? And you're not going to have a P. What you're going to have is a big open circle there. Same thing with this O. This O is just going to be a big open circle. This E, you're going to lose the inside part of this E. So you can't just use any text you want. Ways around this. The first way around this is to use a stencil font. And they do have a stencil font in here. And I think it's even called stencil, if my memory serves me correctly. Yeah, stencil. That's not it, is it? No. So what you're going to have to do is find the Oh, there is stencil. I just messed it up here. So there is a stencil font there. And notice that, let me update this and you can see how this is going to work. And it's going to automatically update. And so now you have like a piece of this P here, and it's still attached. So you can go ahead and use a simple stencil font. All right, so that's one way to do it. And then you can just extrude and cut this all the way out if you want to be able to see through it. You can put your name or whatever else you want down there. The other way, I'm going to go ahead and delete this extrusion and don't delete the consumed sketch, is go back in, sketch, adjust my font to something that I think looks cool. All right, whatever that needs to be, doesn't really matter what it is. And what I can do now is when I finish my sketch, I can actually emboss. Okay, I can emboss. And in emboss, I can create a positive or a negative. So I can create a positive or a negative. So I can make it stick out or I can make it indented. And then I can just go a depth of, I don't know, let's see what 100,000 look like. Oh, that goes all the way through. So 0.025, 25 thousandths. And now you can see I actually have it embossed. So you can go ahead, it doesn't go all the way through, you can cut it all the way out, or you can emboss it. All right, and you can pick whatever font you like. And again, I just picked the random one. The last thing you do is you don't want any sharp corners. So you want to make sure you fillet again. All right, so anywhere from, let's see what 50 thousandths looks like. Maybe 50 thousandths or so. Any of your outside edges. All right. And again, maybe 0.025. And make sure you go ahead and, you don't have to do the text, but any of your edges that you see, make sure that you fillet them inside and out. And you can't really do this all in one step, and I'm going to show you why here in a minute. Because some of these edges here are going to sort of curl over, and you're going to see them turn red because the fillet is going to be too big. And you're going to see that there's a little exclamation point here, and it's going to get mad at us. But essentially, you're going to make sure you come in here and fillet everything. Now, you really should do this in 2 steps. I would have I'm going to show you what this looks like when I try to click OK. Oh, no. You can accept just the successful blends, and it's going to try to blend everything together as best it can. Sometimes if they're too severe or it just doesn't work, like in this case here, it just will not do them. So it only accepted the successful ones, and you can kind of see what this looks like. You can actually take this because the material is not thin enough, or is not thick enough, rather, it's too thin. All right, so 0.02. So that one will let me do 0.02. And you can kind of see how thin this is here by this slot, which is suboptimal here. And you can kind of see how this kind of ended up sort of trying to blend in there, which is not necessarily good. So again, you're just going to kind of play with your fillets and get something. I'll click OK for now, and get something that looks good to you. And what else here? Make sure, did I miss anything? Oh, I did miss something. I missed... I'm going to add that to my fillets. There you go. And now I have a nice, smooth, basic cell phone case. And again, you can play with the designs on the back. If you watch the spinner videos, you can see how you can sort of trace an image back there as well. You can cut it out. Or you can just go to a simple extrude and just extrude different shapes at different depths. All right, so you can get multiple layers of depths and then just keep resharing the sketch of the image, and you can get some pretty complex images by doing it that way as well. And you can go down, you have to remember that a sheet of paper, your standard sheet of paper, is somewhere in the neighborhood of, we'll just call it, 2 sheets of paper is about 5,000, something like that thick. So you can go, 5, 10 thousandths thick on each of your layers as you cut out and cut down into your cell phone case. And I think we have it about 100 thousandths thick. So, I mean, the case itself. So you can actually see it. You can get, even if you go 10 thousandths thick, you can get 10 different layers of depth in your drawings, and you can do some pretty intricate stuff. So that's going to be up to you. And again, you're just going to kind of check your case here. And again, for this first one that we did, make sure that there's no super thin parts. Like, I'm not really happy with this being that thin right there. So you can actually adjust your case by making this part a little thicker. But if we did that about 100 thousandths, I would say that's about the minimum you want to see right here. Alrighty. So hopefully this was helpful. And remember to export your STL, and then you can import that into your 3D printing software for all of your post-processing and 3D printed. They come out pretty good. Alrighty. So I will see you all next time.